Huge week in the Big Ten as we put championship weekend out in front and put to bed rivalry weekend with the game and all the other great rivalries across the Big Ten that were played this past weekend. One thing that Corey and I just mentioned to each other that is with all the controversy swirling across the nation of college football concerning the college football playoff selections, the Big Ten is pretty much cut and dry. So 3 in for the Big Ten for sure. And we will discuss Indiana, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, what transpired this past weekend. And oh, yeah, we have some new coaches entering the league as well. Corey Brada right next to me from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We just wrapped up Iowa Hawkeyes Live, so please check it out. Always a good time talking Iowa football as the Hawkeyes wrapped up another win against Nebraska to conclude, 10-1 in the last 11 years against the Huskers. Corey, how you doing?
I'm good. This past week sort of like put everything to bed as far as it seems like it normally does that. Normally the last couple of weeks, there's teams that have kind of struggled, and then there's teams that have outperformed, and then they kind of come back to earth. That's kind of what I feel has happened with the Big Ten over the last 2 weeks. One being Maryland and Michigan State. Michigan State won this past weekend. They finished with the exact same record. It was like the perfect, week 14 game. So, I guess you could say Michigan State's a little bit better than Maryland, although Michigan State fired Jonathan Smith and Michael Locksley still has work out in College Park. And then, Illinois finished with a win. I actually thought Northwestern was going to win that game, even though it was in Champaign. It was obviously a very snowy day. I'm glad Iowa played on Friday, not Saturday. But the Illini finished 8-4. I know that's going to be disappointing in Illini Nation. They wanted 9-3 or 10-2. They finish a little bit lower than maybe expectations, but certainly Brett's he's in no danger of losing that job with an 8-4 year. And and then Minnesota, again, kind of what you'd expect. They kind of bounce back, although they can't play away from home. They beat Wisconsin by 10 in a rivalry. And how about Penn State Rutgers? I did not expect a shootout, but that's what we got in Piscataway. Ethan Kaliak-Manis threw for over 330 yards and 3 touchdowns, 16-22, and yet lost. So, and KJ Duff had a ridiculous catch. Man, that program, and I said this back when Iowa played them, that program has at least 2 NFL receivers on its roster right now, at least. And it's sort of like Minnesota back in the days of the Big Ten West, where it's like, how are you not better? I know you're going to defend PJ Fleck till you're blue in the face, but how are you not better when you have Rashad Bateman and Chris Ottman-Bell and, Johnson and all these Mo Ibrahim and all these tailbacks that are elite and all these, all these tight ends. Is it O'Keefe and what's the other guy that was there last year? That it was the year before. Anyways, they always have good skill position players is my point, and never could break through. That's sort of how I feel about what Schiano has, which is weird because Schiano is not a offensive guy. He's a defensive guy. So they're in a weird place too. And I don't think he's on necessarily on a hot seat, but they did finish 5-7.
No, I believe we've seen all the firings we will see in the Big Ten. But again, like you, I am curious about Michael Locksley and why he has maintained his position at Maryland. I think it's kind of ironic that that Mike Locksley and Jonathan Smith were staring across the field at each other all day on Saturday afternoon. Smith wins the game. Michigan State finishes with a 1-game better record than, I believe they're 5-7, maybe not. Regardless, 4-8 for both of them. But Smith was given 2 years, coming off a successful stay at Oregon State, given 2 years at Michigan State, and Mike Locksley, we're looking at 6 years, and the last 2 have been horrendous, unless Michigan State had a way to know that they would be able to secure Pat Fitzgerald, possibly. Maybe they knew that before.
I think that's what happened.
So,
I mean, he was hired within like 24 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so they clearly had conversations. That was all lined up. I think it was lined up. I think it's pretty much been stated that Iowa men's basketball kind of did the same thing with Fran McCaffrey and the Ben McCollum situation. I mean, I think you kind of have to do that. And I don't know of is there a rule against doing that? Or administrations can tamper all they want. What's wrong with that? I mean, maybe there's something
especially
ethically
considering,
wrong.
Pat Fitzgerald did not have a job,
Yeah,
a head
exactly.
coaching job. Yeah.
You may say it's not ethical for Michigan State to do that while they have a guy there, but sort of like not quitting your job until you have another one lined up. Like you can use the reverse of that, right? Like don't fire somebody until you have a replacement in place. So, and they got a good one, Mark. I mean, we talked about this over the last hour, and I've been advocating for Pat Fitzgerald to Penn State. To me, he's been the one guy nobody's been talking about. You tell me, 1 to 10, how good of a hire is that for Michigan State?
Oh, for Michigan State,
Yeah,
it's a 9. I can't imagine them getting anyone better.
And now that it looks like Penn State's not going to land Sataki, because I saw the report from On3 that you quoted last hour that BYU has apparently, according to reports, found enough money to basically keep him there. I mean, I can't imagine turning down Penn State for BYU, but that's what it looks like. I don't know what Penn State's going to do now, but isn't it fair to say at this point, given the coaches that are out there, unless they can poach somebody that we don't think is really available, unless they can pull that off, I think Penn State should have hired Pat Fitzgerald first. They could have done that, mid-season, but I think they thought they could hang around and get their guy. And now all of a sudden, Pat Fitzgerald's off the board. The guy from BYU didn't work out. One of the best mid-major / G5 candidates is going to UCLA. And then North Texas's coach, is Merrick Morris, isn't he at Oklahoma State? He was going to be a candidate to watch for. I don't know who else is out there. You have a better feel for it than I do, but I think Penn State's in a kind of a scary position right now.
Well, really, no one is out there. It's more about what you just mentioned. It's about going after a coach who's dutifully employed.
Here is this is from Liam Blutman or Blutman. I don't know. This guy, he's got 72,000 followers. Apparently he's part of Barstool Sports. This is what how about I just share my screen, Mark? This is what he tweeted out here earlier this afternoon. Again, I'm just going to quote this because I don't want to report information that may or may not be true, but this is from Liam Blutman of Barstool. He says, Pat Kraft fired James Franklin to start the Penn State search as early as possible. He spoke to Urban, NIL disagreements. Elko was close, couldn't close. Spoke to Signetti, Rule, Freeman, Drinkwitz. Is it Lee? Who is Lee?
Clark Lee, Vanderbilt.
Okay. And then banked on an Iron Bowl loss to full court press DeBoer. Lincoln's agent pulled his name from consideration on Sunday, tried to take Sataki from Provo and lost Chesney along the way. Now what?
That's a lot of coaches.
If this is accurate,
yes,
that is a lot.
Accurate.
That's a lot of. Well, this is what we've been talking about, Mark. Ever since they fired James Franklin, you kept telling me your guy Marty, whatever his last name is. I'm sorry, Marty. Yes. I'm not trying.
Marty Leap.
Yeah. Marty Leap. Marty said this that you guys kind of laughed at me when I brought up Terry Smith maybe being a candidate. He may be the guy next year, Mark. And I'm telling you this right now, buddy boy. If they if they keep Terry Smith for 1 year, it might be their best option. I'll tell you why. Very similar to what Ohio State did with Luke Fickell. You may have to just endure a year of crap to go get somebody that you actually want.
Yeah, but that would be against the spirit of what he and I'll at least speak for myself, that I was putting together there in that argument. That look at what, it's not like Penn State just said, okay, we're going to put Terry Smith in with our other top 3 candidates and interview them. No, we're talking about like 10 coaches they went after.
Well, I think this was sort of the issue when they fired James Franklin, and I saw Franklin flipped a Penn State recruit today, and apparently he's doing pretty well on the recruiting trail since he took over. But the reason I bring it up is, to me, what they did with Franklin is they said, and I think you and I agree on this, they said exactly what Nebraska said to Bo Pelini, exactly what Wisconsin said to Paul Chryst. And neither of those jobs has worked out the way you want, the way those coaching staffs want. Now, Penn State's a level above, right? Even Nebraska. Penn State's had more recent success nationally, as has Wisconsin than Nebraska. But Penn State's, you could say, is a better brand than Wisconsin now, especially now. And so the reason I bring it up is like, yeah, they said we need somebody better that can take us to the next level, that can beat Michigan, that can beat Ohio State. But like you said at the time, how many guys are there out there that have a resume that's proven that they can pull that off? Like James Franklin was winning basically every other game and competing in general until this year. They were competing with those other programs, but they said, no, that's not good enough. We want to go find somebody who can get us over the hump. It's not automatic that you're going to win all those other games like Franklin was. It's not automatic that you're going to win those other games and compete against Ohio State and Michigan. Just compete. And so now what they've done, what it appears that they've done, is they've went for the big people. I don't know why Saban's done on the list. I'm guessing they've probably reached out to Saban, and Saban just said, forget it. But they've tried to go get Signetti. They've tried Sataki. They've tried Drinkwitz, all these big names. I don't know why you'd court Matt Rule. If I was Matt Rule, I'd be taking that job in a heartbeat. That'd be a stupid hire. But this is what they've done. They said, we're going to go after all these big names. Now they turn you all down. You're like, oops, we kind of screwed the pooch here because we were going to wait for all these high major programs to be near the end of their season so we can pursue these coaches. But we missed out on opportunities like Pat Fitzgerald, like this guy from James Madison. Yeah. What do you do now?
No, it's a great point. It's a great point. And when you look at that list of coaches, if that's accurate, and another thing our guy Marty Leap said is that Urban Meyer should be the first guy that they go after, and apparently he was. So Urban Meyer is the only guy on that list that has a better coaching resume than James Franklin. So say what you will about James Franklin not being able to win the biggest games against those two programs in the league. He was going 10-2 constantly and winning Rose Bowls and Cotton Bowls and Fiesta Bowls. And he's got a better resume than even their second guy was Mike Elko. Mike Elko hasn't accomplished as much as James Franklin has.
He hasn't done anything so far. I mean, he's won games at A&M, but they have not done anything.
No.
And here's the other thing. You think about what Michigan, what Penn State has with Terry Smith. And I brought up the idea of keeping him as an interim and enduring, another down year. They did get to 6 wins with Terry Smith. He did win several games in the league when it looked like things were totally crumbling. They were losing to everybody. They lost to one of the worst teams in the league in UCLA. They lost to a Northwestern team that had no business being on the same field with them at home. They lost that game at home. So that would probably be my advice to Penn State right now. I would really, unless you are absolutely sold on somebody else, unless you can bring Bobby Stoops out of retirement, I'd be sitting there thinking, hey, Terry, we can't give you more than a 1-year extension here, but we want you to be our coach next year. And we're not lifting the interim tag. We're not lifting the interim tag, but we're going to pay you X amount to stick around. Terry Smith's a Penn State alum.
Yes.
Maybe he wouldn't do that, but is he on some other? What is Terry Smith's future, assuming they hire outside of Terry Smith this year? Does he go somewhere else and is a coordinator somewhere else?
Unless somebody wants to keep him around there, which I think he would be somebody that if I was taking over a new program, I would want Terry Smith to stick around and help me. He knows everything there is to know about Penn State.
So, and then the other option is, okay, what's the next level down? Like PJ Fleck? Is he the next level down? You're going to replace James Franklin with PJ Fleck?
You're starting to get me to a point where I may produce a video on this because I may have to start to search this through and think, okay, what are their best options at this point? You just mentioned you mentioned Bob Stoops, but what about Mark Stoops?
I mean, can you imagine
horrible seasons
if they went out and got a guy from Kentucky that had good success there for a period of time
for Kentucky,
tailed off for Kentucky, good success there, exactly, in the best league in the country, but he's never won anything big. He's worse than Franklin as far as resume is concerned. And by the way, they both have good resumes. But if we're talking about expecting this up here, they're expecting to be Ohio State, Michigan, even what Dan Lanning's doing at Oregon. I mean, I don't know what the other options are. Chip Kelly? Would Chip Kelly be an option?
No, Chip Kelly left Ohio State he left originally UCLA because he wants nothing to do with messing around with NIL and transfer portals. He wants to coach football.
I'm just wondering if maybe not coaching in LA, but being in Happy Valley would be maybe enough of a change for him that he'd be willing to entertain it again. I mean, he coached college football for a long time. I'm just throwing people out there because I don't know what other options there are.
I would rather go Matt Campbell route. He's probably the first guy I would call at this point.
I'm surprised they haven't. I'm surprised that he's not listed on that, and that list may not be all exclusive. That may be. You're right. I mean, Iowa State didn't finish the year great. They were 8-4. He's probably the best name out there. I mean, he's a better candidate than PJ.
I wonder if they could get Brett Bielema.
I mean, with all due respect, I love Brett Bielema, but is he a better candidate? I mean, what has he done at Illinois to prove? What did he do at Illinois, at Arkansas?
And this is my claim for like a Matt Campbell or a PJ Fleck, is that even though they neither one of them, well, I'm not comparing those two because Matt Campbell has been slightly better. He's gone to 2 conference championship games at Iowa State. So, but maybe PJ Fleck with that kind of program.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to go after somebody who has not proven it, but is another James Franklin-esque hire that might be able to get them over the hump. It's all just because there's not, like you said, there's not enough people that have proven they can do it. There are not enough Nick Sabans, Urban Meyers, Kurt Signettis of the world, but there are more Matt Campbells, PJ Flecks, James Franklin's, Brett Bielema's, Kirk Ferentz's, those guys who what you're getting, and maybe if you put better assets around them, they'll get you over the hump. But it's a roll of the dice. It's a roll of the dice, and based on the names that were just brought up, like Urban and Signetti, I believe Penn State, it seems to me that Penn State believed that they could go get a known commodity, and I never thought that was realistic. There just weren't, there's not enough.
True. All right, super chat, and we've got a call. And so we've got our buddy, it's our guy Minnesota Dave showing up, who says a guy on ESPN Madison Radio said that Minnesota is little brother. If Minnesota is little brother, then Wisconsin is sister and daddy issues with daddy issues.
What is he talking about?
Well, he doesn't like being called little brother in the rivalry.
Well, they did win. Minnesota did win this past weekend.
And PJ Fleck has been winning in that game.
And by the way, no disrespect to Michael Locksley. You brought him up as someone who should be on the hot seat because he's been there 6 years. But Luke Fickell is the next guy that I don't blame Wisconsin fans at all for being outraged at Wisconsin keeping him. But he's only been there 2 years. But that's going to be a situation where you have to recognize we're going to have to fire him midseason next year. Like they're going to have to do that. If he doesn't, if it doesn't look right through the first month, they're going to have to fire him midseason. So they better have a backup plan.
Chris Kleiman, Kansas State. He would be another guy that I wouldn't be like drooling over that selection, but at this point, that's where they may have to go. He's on that Matt Campbell level. Got the real MVP chiming in.
Yeah, my option for what Penn State should do, other than, first off, their recruiting for tomorrow is going to be horrendous. They're behind Harvard, I saw as a few hours ago. That's how bad they are.
Hey, real quick, can we just establish that doesn't really mean a lot?
Yeah, I know, but it is funny.
It is funny. Yeah, I saw that stat as well.
What
They're like
doesn't mean a lot?
It doesn't really mean a lot that their high school recruiting ranking is 130 some in the country, because they're going to be, whoever it takes that job is going to be able to go get a lot of high major people out of the portal and poach.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, the guy I would get is Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. He was the wide receivers coach for LSU during the 2019 season with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. So he has some college experience. He's only 36 years old, so he's young, and you can build for the future with him. That's who I would currently go after if I was Penn State. And he's familiar with that region of the country as well, and climate and the environment around there. So I think that's probably the best candidate on the board.
So where's Bill O'Brien right now?
Boston College.
He just got that Boston College job. Would he be someone? I mean, I don't know what the legalities of that. He just got the job. Could they poach him from Boston College?
They're so horrendously bad. I think he's tainted his value tremendously. I mean, they went 2-10 this year, 2-11, something like that. I mean, they're just horrendous.
So DeReal brings up a good point that I'm incapable of offering up NFL candidates these days. 10 years ago, I would have been able to play that game, but I don't know who's in the NFL and what they're doing. But that's a good thought right there.
Yeah. Basically decided. We know it's going to be Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana. I've seen some speculation that Oregon could potentially, if things fall right, get the number 4 seed. Like if BYU wins and Alabama wins, do you think that's a possibility that Oregon climbs up to the 4 seed and the Big Ten has 3 of the 4 buys?
So obviously the loser between Indiana and Ohio State has to be impressive. They can't get blown out. As long as that's a close game, they're going to maintain 2 of the 4 spots. And then you've got, so you're saying Alabama wins. They're 11-2. I think that Alabama as the SEC champion is going to be higher than Oregon.
I do too.
Unless
I
the
do
committee
think
really takes it to them tonight and drops them because of the close win against Auburn, which I don't think they're going to penalize him for that.
no, I was actually going to go in a different direction. I think they're going to raise them tonight. I think they're going to be number 9. I saw on FanDuel, I heard on FanDuel, they were minus 4,000 earlier today to make the college football playoff. Now that number's been bet all the way down to minus 950, but they're basically saying they're a lock to make the college football playoff.
So you're telling us that the committee is going to translate the Auburn win by this much against a 5-7 team as a reason to jump over Notre Dame?
I'm not saying that the committee should do that. I think the committee could do that, and they probably will do that.
I don't know how they're going to explain that.
Oh, I mean, the committee has much worse decisions over this ranking. We've had Notre Dame over ahead of Miami for the last month, so nothing's really made sense. They're just doing it to protect themselves. That case, if Alabama loses the SEC championship game, they don't have to fall out of the college football playoff because it would be another spot.
Yeah, I posted my predictions for the rankings. I think that their pain points are what to do with Texas A&M. How far do they fall since they've got such a weak 11-1 record? Then they've got this Miami, Alabama, Notre Dame, BYU decision to make about what to do with those teams. And how much are they going to value this Miami win against Pitt versus Notre Dame playing the same team 2 weeks ago and it pretty much being the same result? And then Texas. Obviously, the Texas decision is going to be interesting, to say the least.
By the way, real quick, can I throw another name into the mix for Penn State? And I know some people are going to scoff at this, but what about Brian Kelly?
I don't think Brian Kelly has a good reputation right now in college football at that level.
I know, but
he wins. He knows how to run a program. Like, there is no debating. The guy knows what he's doing to run the job, but he just doesn't. Like, he's not likable. He's like, it's like almost a presidential candidate. He's not a likable candidate.
James Franklin's not likable either.
Yeah, but Brian Kelly's different level.
Yes.
James Franklin is not likable.
Well, you're talking from your own personal perception of James Franklin. But if we, no. If we took a poll of people's perception of James Franklin, outside of people just basically saying, you know what, he can't win the game, the big games, people don't have a negative take on James Franklin. Nowhere close to Brian Kelly. People Brian Kelly might be the most disliked person in the sport.
No, I think that was true up until 48 hours ago. I think Lane Kiffin has.
Okay, but he's got a job, and he's making more than anyone.
His clothes are out on the street. I saw. That's bad, Mark. When your clothes are out on the street, whoo, man.
Yeah, I'm glad we haven't talked about that. I can't stand Lane Kiffin, and I felt that way before all of this happened. It's just, I know you've talked about it, I'm sure, Mark, but
I don't see it as grave as everyone else does.
No, I just don't like. To me, he's just annoying, pompous. I hate the fact that somebody has to be on social media that much as a head coach.
Yeah, but you're not talking about how he handled this situation.
No, I mean, I do think he creates drama, which I don't like. He does create drama, like what he did with that Ole Miss reporter. That was unnecessary. He didn't need to do it. He knew cameras were present. Those are the types of things like you just handle differently. So to me, he's a drama queen. That's what he is. But I don't know I don't know why LSU is so such a better program than Ole Miss. I guess you tell me. Why is that? And I don't understand. I don't
That's
understand
the
the
only thing.
concept.
That's the only thing I can tell you because I can't even justify that answer. I can't back it up. That's what's, it must be true, but that's the perception, is that there are just so many more resources. I don't think they care anymore. Ole Miss obviously has gone all in to hire Lane Kiffin and give him everything he needs and go into the portal and spend a ton of money. And obviously they're 11-1. So you can do pretty well at Ole Miss, apparently. But LSU's been able to do it over and over and over. Now, Lane Kiffin saying it's the best program in the country is a joke beyond belief.
Can we get Husker Mini's comment up on the screen? I just want to address that. You want to read the question and I'll address it, Mark, before I hop off here.
Minnie is here. We always love to see Minnie. How would you handle someone calling you a hoe, Corey?
Well, that's not what happened. Okay. So do research on this. That's not what happened, Minnie. You can read what actually was said. He was not called a hoe. Okay. That's not what was said. Lane Kiffin took it that way, but that's not what was said. Context is very important. But even if he had been, you don't do it in front of a bunch of cameras. Listen, I guarantee you Lane Kiffin is being called far worse. But you don't stoop to the level of everybody that wants to call names. And the reason he did it is because it was a reporter who had a voice and had a microphone. And Lane wanted to make himself seem big and tough. That's my perception of the whole. But that's not what was said. I'm just saying, go look it up, what he actually was called. He wasn't called anything, technically speaking. I'm not just defending the guy because he's a reporter. I think he probably is an attention-seeking person as well. Because I've seen some of his response, because it's getting him fame and popularity too over that encounter with Lane. But I'm just saying, the fact is he didn't call him that.
I have never cared for Lane Kiffin, but I've tried to keep that out of my analysis because I haven't found anything that's like tangibly horrible about him, like anything that he's done that is just overtly, just gravely bad. That I have evaluated him to be some horrible person. I just don't like his style. So I've tried to remove myself from like, I don't like Deion Sanders' approach, just the way he carries himself. But I don't want to judge him or evaluate him just because I don't have a preference toward the way he acts or talks. And it's kind of the same thing with Lane Kiffin. Now, I have attacked Lane Kiffin a few times because he's acted like a baby and he's whined about NIL. When his program can pay more than 95% of the schools in the country, he whines about the 3 or 4 or 10 that can pay more than him. And he's done that on a regular basis, i.e. Texas A&M, Alabama, Texas. So I don't like that. So I have picked on him for that. And then concerning this situation, I don't like the way he handled it. Although he has said all the right things about the way Ole Miss handled the situation. He didn't go after them. He said, they have every right to deny me the opportunity to coach this football team. It's their team. Keith Carter's the athletic director. He has every right to kick me out of the building and say, we're done. And it's his program. It's his football team now. So I don't have that right, even though I asked for it. And he says nothing but they were great to me. That was the best 6 years of my life. Now, when I heard him say something about having peace and something else, just having the best 6 years of my life and all this peace, I don't know why you leave a situation where you say you had your best 6 years of your life for $2 more million per year, or whatever it turns out to be. I will say that while the situation was not handled the best in his manner, people initially got pissed off because he's simply leaving a playoff team. But I don't know how you change jobs in this sport without leaving your team. I saw a clip on NFL, the CBS NFL show with James Brown and the rest of those guys, and they were just going off on Lane Kiffin. And some of it was rightfully so, but they were coming at it from the angle of coach commits to player, says, I'm going to be here for you. I'm recruiting and signing you. I'm your coach. I'm going to be here. And then the coach leaves. Well, that's just kind of the way it does. Obviously, now the players are leaving as well. And if we held the coach to the standard that seems like most of us are trying to hold them to, they would never leave. They would have to stay at that job because they have to constantly replenish the roster with new players and commitments to new players. So they would never leave a job. But can the school guarantee that they will never fire the coach? So the loyalty doesn't go both ways. The loyalty goes neither way. So while the coach is being blamed for not being loyal to the institution and the players, the institutions are not loyal to the coaches either. If they don't meet their standards, they fire them. It's just the way it is.
I think it's, I mean, I understand everything you just said about changing positions and timing and all that. I just can't imagine leaving a playoff team. I just, is LSU that better of, like you just said, the money, is it that much better of a job that you're going to leave a team that you just led to literally the goal with an opportunity to win a national title? You're going to leave those guys. Like I have no issue with Ole Miss telling him that you're not coaching, because it doesn't. There are mixed reports on that, but there are some reports that indicate that the players did not want him there either. So, I mean, I understand that. If I was a player, I mean, I don't know what type of relationship he built as a head coach with his players, but I would think as a player that I would want to rally around my assistant coaches, those guys who are still there. But the problem is he took some of his assistants with him.
So what is the number one reason why most of us leave jobs and go to other jobs?
More money.
More money. Lane Kiffin was making, I just looked it up, $9 million a year at Ole Miss, $13 million at LSU. Now, most people are going to respond by saying $9 million, $13 million, because we can't relate to $9 or $13 million. But that is a significant increase in pay. And what I have found out about human nature is everybody thinks that the standard for being rich is anything more than what I make is typically what people evaluate as, well, that's a lot of money. And that is a ton of money, and more money than anybody needs in this country to live and live comfortably and support their family. But still, it's $9 million, it's $13 million, and apparently promises of resources that he didn't have at Ole Miss.
And by the way, I got to head out of here, but I just want to say one more thing in response to Minnie. She says, I didn't answer the question. I did answer the question. If I was called this name, I would not, knowing there's cameras around, go get in the guy's face and make a spectacle of it. I would not. Okay. Now, I'm not in the situation, so maybe you're going to argue, well, you can't. You asked me what I think I would do. That's what I wouldn't do what he did. Also, you made a comment about how much you love Lane Kiffin. That's fine. But this is the issue with society when we're talking about supporting someone or liking someone, whether it's a coach or a player, or, we can also be objective and say, yeah, I like the guy, but he could have done better here. I like Kirk Ferentz, but he let nepotism and blood being thicker than water rule the roost for too long. Both can be true. We don't have to defend him. And for her to say, when's he supposed to confront the guy? So you're telling me the only way for him to deal with the situation was to go, as you're trotting off the field, to go get in this reporter's face? Really? He couldn't have done it right after a press conference, called him on Monday. I mean, there's so many other ways to handle it. I believe he likes the limelight, and I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm just saying as a public figure, as a coach, it seems to me that he likes putting himself out there, sort of like James Franklin liked putting himself out there, sort of like PJ Fleck puts himself out there. The difference is those guys haven't done what Lane Kiffin just did and hopped to another school within the conference before their team's about to take the field for a chance at a national title. That's the difference. So anyways, that's all I have to say. I think Minnie's a little bit frustrated by the 24-point loss over the weekend, but regardless, Mark, I love you. I'm gonna let you go. And Darrell, hey, we got basketball back, so I hope you'll call into our basketball show here.
Oh, gladly. I saw you all beat Baylor. Congrats on the win.
The women beat Baylor. I'm thinking men,
yeah.
But yeah, the women beat Baylor, beat Miami, and the men have taken down Ole Miss and Xavier. So they're both undefeated. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, you got a good game tonight against Michigan State. Good luck.
Big time. Thanks, Drill. Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate you being here.
Bro, he was fired up, man, about Lane Kiffin.
The great Corey Bratta.
I know. He was fired up about that, man.
Corey has a record of having a certain level or standard of decorum that he would like to see head coaches meet. And
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin doesn't meet that standard by
Oh,
any
I think that's just objectively true that he is very carefree about how people perceive him, and it will not bother him at all. To me, the issue with Lane Kiffin and my criticism of him is just he dragged it out for way too long. Like, in my personal opinion, he was like, okay, well, we're going to wait after the Egg Bowl. Well, we're going to wait after Saturday. Then it's going to be Sunday. And it's like Sunday afternoon and he makes a decision. Like, he could have, I don't think it was really that nip and tuck where he's like, man, I'm just going back and forth. I think a lot of it was just, well,
I hope it was.
I don't
I
think
hope you're wrong.
I think it
Now,
was just him negotiating with the administration. Hey, I'm leaving. I want to coach the team. I
well,
think
then
that
it was okay. Well, then it was nip and tuck before he got exactly the situation that he tried to get.
right.
Yeah. Now, if you or I are negotiating for a job and it's not in the public limelight and we're not leaving 100 players and a coaching staff and administrator and all these people over a barrel for weeks and weeks and weeks, and our prospective employers allowing us to decide for that long because they want us that much, well, that's our own business. But yeah, I believe that there's an obligation for that coach, Lane Kiffin, in this case, to respect the time and the resources and everything involved, the emotions of the situation, and say, okay, it's reasonable for me to decide in 3 days. I can talk to all the people I want to, I can review it with my family and whomever else I trust, and I can make a decision and
Right.
not go on forever.
Yeah, I believe Pete Carroll and Nick Saban told him to take the LSU job. I believe Lane Kiffin wanted to take the LSU job, and I believe everything after that was just show dramaticism and him trying to get some negotiation leverage in order to get exactly what he wanted. Now,
I
what he
hope
wanted could be a variety of different things. It could be, more resources at LSU, more money at LSU. I want to stay at Oklahoma and coach my team. It could be all a combination or none of those or some other factor, but that's what I think personally happened. The Penn State debacle, Mark, is this whole issue with them so damaging, like worst case scenario, where they kind of fall off for a few years? Because their signing days tomorrow, they're not going to have a head coach. They're so low in the high school recruiting rankings. Their total talent of the team is almost incapable of reaching a certain level now just because of how far in the rankings they are. So what is their goal for next season and what can they expect to reasonably achieve? Like, I feel like 10-2 and 11-1 is almost already off the table because this day or week or month especially sets up next year so much. And they're just so far behind everyone else.
Okay, so everything you just said, I can agree with because I don't think it's impossible if they find the next Kurt Signetti, who is unknown, and obviously Signetti was known to a small degree when he left James Madison, then they have the opportunity to retain a roster, really kill it in the transfer portal, and then the guy coaches the heck out of the team and they play over their heads and things are better than we anticipate. But that's like a 1% chance. So most likely, yes, there's going to be a fall off because in previous iterations of this before the transfer portal, you would at least be able to say, okay, this is Penn State. And even though they've got heavy NFL losses because obviously this team was locked and loaded to make a run at a national championship. So there were a lot of guys that came back for an extra season a la Ohio State and Michigan the last 2 years. So they were heavy upper class anyway, upperclassmen meaning anyway. So they were losing a ton of people as it was. Now, anybody that's worth anything can think, hey, I'm a starting cornerback at Penn State. I can play pretty much wherever I want. Why am I playing for unknown coach and program that's on shaky ground? You're entirely right. And then you got to think that anybody that they are recruiting in this 2026 class, if they have better options, the guys that they're going to be able to sign, they're going to sign because to play at Penn State is, regardless of who the head coach is, such an upgrade over probably the Rutgers and the Boston colleges and the Marylands that are recruiting them otherwise, that they just say, well, Penn State's just going to be better regardless. So that's the best option for me. But the recruiting battles with Notre Dame and Ohio State and Michigan, they're going to lose. I can't imagine that they'll be able to win those with, again, the complete blank as a head coach. I will say that history shows us the counter, though, and this is a completely different situation. But I, like most people, thought that the program was pretty much headed toward damnation for like 5 or 6 years minimum after the Jerry Sandusky situation, because who wants to play with that stigma, which they don't have that now, but that was a unique situation where who wants to, that has any chance of being able to play for any like school, wants to go to Penn State. You can't play in the postseason for 2 years. You got the stigma of playing for Penn State. You got scholarship reductions, got all these things going against you, and you're trying to compete against Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, et cetera, for recruits. How are they? And there was no transfer portal to bail yourself out and sign 30 or 40 players. You know, if they do somehow make a decent hire, and I don't know who that is, let's say it's Matt Campbell, he's going to go sign 30 or 40 players, and maybe he will be able to put together a pretty good football team.
Maybe. I just have this hard time believing that they're going to be any somewhat semblance of what they have been over the last 5 years. It really feels like Penn State didn't have a plan, or they have a plan and they're guys still currently coaching either in the college or NFL. To me, that's the only two directions they can go in, because they were I think maybe the first to fire their head coach. And now that they're going to be the last to get a head coach, it's just a very strange dynamic that I don't think I've ever seen before. To me, in terms of the other coaches like Mike Slotsky and Luke Fickell, they're like Billy Napier. Everybody knows they're fired. It's just for whatever reason that they're still having their job. There's no hope. There's no optimism. There's no future. I mean, shoot, Jonathan Smith at Michigan State only got 2 years, but yet we're giving Luke Fickell 4 and Mike Locksley 7 at schools that expect more or the same as Michigan State. It makes no logical sense to me.
Well, you're right, Darrell, but at the same time, Billy Napier did have a window of opportunity, and there was a point during this offseason where, based on what they were accomplished in November and winning a bowl game, and I think the record was 5-2 down the stretch against one of the most difficult stretches of games I've ever seen in my life, that and with DJ Lagway coming back after a successful season, and they had a good recruiting class. They really had a really strong recruiting class, much because of their November success and because Napier kept his job and all of that, that there was a window of time there in the off season that it felt like he has a chance. If he's a better coach than we all think he is, if he's the guy that they envisioned when they hired, he now has at least arrived at a place where there's some peace and there's some stability and there's some hope and optimism, because he's got a star quarterback. They just played really well for a 7-game stretch. He just brought in a really good recruiting class. I can't really recall off the top of my head their transfer portal additions. They were decent from what I recall, nothing groundbreaking, but they went into this season with hope. So if he would have been able to pull off 8-4 this year, then he still has a job.
No, that's all fair. That is all fair. And then the wild card coach that I think could get fired, that's a big name, probably the biggest name, is Sharon Moore of Michigan. Like, I just think Michigan fans are completely done with his coaching, in-game decisions, and their offensive philosophy in general. I think you can get away with losing 38-35 more often because it's fun and exciting. But when every game, if it's 21 points your opponent scores and it's basically over, that's a tough life to live.
Yeah, our buddy Tony Gerdeman, who does the Ohio State show with us, says this from time to time. If you don't have an offense in college football these days, then you're just not trying. Like, you can have an offense. Now, to have an elite defense to be able to compete for championships and get that many athletes on that side of the ball that can stop offenses, that's tough to do, i.e. Arkansas. Like, you get a quarterback who's mobile, who's decent, who can run around like a Taylon Green, and you're in an SEC school or a Big Ten school, you can get some athletes and you can put together an offense and score some points. Now, obviously, Arkansas is light years away from having a championship level defense. So at Michigan, to be this deplorable when it really counts on offense, and I know that they started to put up some decent yardage totals during the midpoint of the season, but yeah, that would be a judgment call that would be less about record and more about, okay, we've just evaluated this guy and we see that we've given him a good structure and a good plan, and we've given him everything he needs, and he didn't even achieve anything against the worst schedule that the Big Ten could possibly give him. So yeah, sometimes it's just flat out, okay, this dude went 5-7. He's not surviving that. He's gone. That would be more or less Michigan going beyond the record and saying, you know, a mannequin could have stood on the sideline and gone 9-3 against Purdue and Wisconsin and Michigan State. Yeah, he's clearly not the guy that we want to take into the future. Therefore, despite the record being respectable, he's not the guy. And we're Michigan. So, but I think that the thought process would have to go to the next step to say, who's that guy? Or is there 3 or 4 guys that we think that we could get one of them? And if those guys do exist and we think that we've got a good shot, then we'll go that route, i.e., I guess, Michigan State Jonathan Smith, replacing him with Pat Fitzgerald, or, you know, we'll slug it out with Sharon Moore for one more year because we don't know that we really can replace him with the type guy that we want to.
I get it. I understand that completely. I'm still amazed because there was a lot of hype here in the offseason, especially about Bryce Underwood, the quarterback of Michigan, the number 1 recruit prospect, talking about how he's going to be elite. Mark, I've only watched Michigan 2 games this year, the Oklahoma game and the Ohio State game. And I recognize that they probably are the 2 best defenses in the country. But Mark, you can't convince me that there's like 30 or 40 quarterbacks that could have performed better against those 2 teams than what he's done. Like, they're really hurting his development, in my opinion, because he just looked the exact same from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Now, maybe I'm assuming he played pretty good against the mediocre competition, but against the elites, he was able to do nothing.
He threw 9 touchdowns this year.
That's bad, Mark.
Yeah, when you've got 2 lousy non-conference teams, and then you've got a slate of Purdue and Wisconsin and Northwestern and Michigan State on your schedule in Maryland. Yeah, it's terrible. So I came up with this analogy at the last, or this comparison, I guess it would be, when I was on Michigan podcast this afternoon, which I always find a challenge because Steve Dace goes on there and for 15 or 20 minutes, he spouts off about Michigan football, which he knows 1,000 times better than me. Then he brings me on for the next segment to give my opinion. I'm thinking, okay, what can I, and I don't even hear his segment. So, but anyway, that aside, we were talking about Bryce Underwood, and he was just talking about, you know, do we have a prayer to develop, you know, how much is his fault versus how much is this Michigan simply not having the quarterbacks coach, the offensive coordinator, the head coach to develop him, and how much are they failing him? And he mentioned a few guys like Ryan Day and Will Stein, and guys that are really, you know, top of the line quarterback whisperers.
That Will Stein name sounds familiar to me, by the way. Just want to throw that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, he could be a head coach maybe in the SEC someday. I could see that happening possibly. He could get his shot.
I heard he's a great guy. But anyway, let's...
Yeah. I'm guessing you've become, I don't know, maybe a larger Will Stein fan than you were 24 hours ago.
Oh, yeah. I've been puddling around with Oregon fans, flopping.
Yeah.
You know, I've been getting my ducks in a row, as they say, Mark, with those bunch of people. But
so just to put a cap on it, my take on that was basically there was a quarterback that I could liken very much to a Bryce Underwood who played at Ohio State only about 3 or 4 years ago by the name of Justin Fields. Now, you know, as an NFL fan, Justin Fields would never be confused with Peyton Manning when it comes to studying film or reading a defense. And I'm not saying he doesn't have a work ethic and he doesn't work hard, but he was never going to be that type of quarterback from a cerebral standpoint, but they knew how to develop him within his skill set and his ability to comprehend a playbook and an offense. And they worked with that to the tune of 41 touchdowns and 3 interceptions one season. So if you got the right people in play, and I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between a Justin Fields, who had a world of talent, and Bryce Underwood, their skill sets are very comparable in terms of they're runners, but they're not Lamar Jackson. They're like not generational runners, but they're at the top of their sports, and they've got guns on their right arms, and they've got all the talent in the world, but they may not be, again, the next Peyton Manning when it comes to reading a defense. So what do you do with that?
Well, in Michigan's case and Justin Fields' case currently for the Jets, I believe it is, it's not a whole lot, Mark, is the answer to your question. It feels like when I've watched the 2 Michigan games, they've really struggled to do anything successfully, and they seem very ordinary in terms of plays. Like Justin Haynes is the only good player that they have on offense, and everybody else is just like having to fight for every inch on the ground, and it shouldn't be that difficult. You know, it feels like if you just ran a jet sweep, you should be able to get 3 yards because it's different, but they don't have the creativity to think of these things. Like even Iowa, for how atrocious they were and still are, they're at least creative and moving the ball some and having some sustainable drives. It's almost like Michigan has somewhat replaced Iowa as just, oh my gosh, they're going to be horrendous. Now, Wisconsin's fully replaced them, but Michigan's just a more elite version of Wisconsin, in my opinion.
Yeah. So just to fill in the blanks a little bit, I appreciate your take, and I'm right there with you. I think it's a bit of an oversimplification about them not having any players on offense. So Donovan McCulley's a pretty good player as a wide receiver, but this Andrew Marsh, who was a true freshman, and our friend Leanne Herring went on and on and on about how he was going to be a star, and he certainly was, starting with about game 5 or game 6 this year. He had like 190 yards against USC. He had a similar game against Northwestern. He actually had more receiving yards for like a 6-week stretch than anybody in the Big Ten. But they weren't smart enough. And obviously then they go up against Ohio State and they lock him down. It's not like they tricked their defense to cover Andrew Marsh. They just, put a good cornerback on him. And but Michigan, I'm watching this entire game, and I said this to Steve Dace on Michigan Podcast today, that they didn't have enough offensive ingenuity. That he got 0 touches in this game, 0. I said that they couldn't at some point just run a rub route or something just to get him involved. You got your best player on offense that's still on the field because Justice Haynes is gone. And you're not going to do anything. And you can't, he's running downfield 20 yards and your quarterback's not good enough and your offense flying to get the ball to him, that you're not just doing some little things to get the ball in his hands to keep him involved. In addition to him being your best playmaker and chance to somehow win the game, that's an indictment against your play calling and against your scheme for sure. And just your brains about using personnel.
Right, and to me, I'm comparing Michigan when I say they got nobody good. I'm not talking about the South Carolina standard. I'm talking about where they should be, which is the elite tier of college football. But to me, when watching the game, it's just someone who's casually observed them. It's like when the snow was coming down, they went down the field, they scored the field goal, and then Julian Sayin threw that first pick. Yep. I thought, man, a little part of me, Mark said, Michigan's going to do this again, isn't they? And I'm thinking, man, they're really going to pull it off for a 5th year in a row. And then they just kicked a field goal, couldn't do anything after that. I feel like previous years' Michigan teams would have been able to capitalize on the momentum, pound the ball in the end zone, been up 10-0, put pressure on a new quarterback for Ohio State, maybe cause them a few more mistakes, and really take control of that game. And it feels like that early stretch where they kicked the field goal instead of being able to pound the rock was the difference, because everything, or like that first 5 minutes,
I was set up with you. I was right there with you. They, I got my notes right in front of me from being on Michigan Podcast. Yeah, they come out of the gate, 35-yard run, boom, right out of the gate. They do exactly what they want to do, and that's pound the rock. They get a 35-yard run. They kick 2 field goals, which doesn't seem like a big deal because they should have had touchdowns maybe, but Their kicker had missed 7 kicks this season, Dominic Zavada, but he does convert the field goals. They get and then you're playing a quarterback, and the 2 advantages that I said going into that game that Bryce Underwood had over Julian Sayin was, number one, Julian Sayin has never had a game that was close. The Texas game was relatively close, but where he was on the field and he had to deliver. Now, Bryce Underwood had a game a couple weeks ago against Northwestern. They were down by a point. Their playoff lives are on the line, and he had to drive them down the field and deliver some really nice balls downfield to win the game. So Bryce Underwood had accomplished that. Julian Sayin had not. And then on top of that, Bryce Underwood grew up in Michigan. He's played in snow. Julian Sayin grew up in Southern California. I guarantee he's hardly ever seen snow except for being a student at Ohio State, but never played in it. And they confirmed that during the broadcast that he said something like, I've never played in hardly any weather under 60 degrees. And so, I was having that thought too. I thought, they're at home. It's starting to snow. It's cold. Julian Sayin has never been behind in his life at Ohio State. He's never played in these weather conditions, which seem like, oh, big deal. But he's a quarterback. He's got a grip of football when he's just not used to playing out in the snow. And the psychology of, we've lost this game 4 years in a row, and now we just threw a pick and they're running the ball on us. They just scored. They got the ball back. Yeah, I had my moment of, is this really going to happen again? Are you serious? Really? But order was restored. And I think it speaks volumes to Julian Sayin for him to keep his composure and settle things down and then play after his first 4 passes, almost a flawless game.
Right. Well, the other thing that struck me that was different this year from every other year was when it was 17-9 and they were at the 50 and they scored the long touchdown. I don't think any of the other years Julian Sayin would have had nearly enough time in the pocket to complete that long of a throw. The pressure from this year to other years was ginormous.
Absolutely. So, for as much credit as I give Julian Sayin, he played in a clean pocket the entire day. Their pass protection was perfect, practically perfect. And the other thing that they couldn't do in the past is they had a 12-minute drive where they just ran the ball down their throats. They ran it 8 straight times, and they weren't ripping them for 30-yard runs, but they were 5, 8, 6, 4, 8. Yeah, they bullied Michigan. They held them to -8 yards rushing in the second half. Yeah, Ohio State, that wasn't even Ohio State winning a la Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, when they used to hang 50 and 60 points on Michigan because they just were faster on the outside. No, that was them winning a fight in a phone booth.
Right. That was a Michigan drive that Ohio State conducted is what it was.
Yep.
I was just really impressed with Ohio State all around. I do think they are unquestionably one of the 2 best teams. They're most likely, or at least should, play in the national championship game. They've proven it, everything they can do all year. I'm still not convinced they're going to care about the Big Ten title game because that doesn't matter. I don't know psychologically how much that's in their mind because they just beat their rival. They know they got bigger and better things to go. For Indiana, this is their Super Bowl mark. And to me, that's probably why Indiana's going to win this football game. This is the biggest game in the history of Indiana football. I think Ohio State, they're not going to say it and their coaches isn't going to do it. I would be shocked if they showed anything different than what they've done the first 13 weeks. Keep it all under wraps for the playoffs where Indiana, I think, is going to go all out, do plays they've never done or seen before. So I think Indiana's going to win this Big Ten title game 28-23, something like that. I think everybody's going to be stunned and shocked. But I think if they rematch, Ohio State would absolutely blow them out of the water. That's just my opinion.
Well, we kind of saw that last year with Oregon, so that's possible.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I don't know that you're going to be right, but it's reasonable. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and if Ohio State wins it all, think about this. There's an argument, just an argument. Ryan Day's the best head coach in the history of Ohio State. I'm not saying he is. I know Woody Hayes is elite. But Ryan Day's 2 titles is much more valid than any of Woody Hayes' titles that he's had.
And Ryan Day will have the best winning percentage, depending on how it's counted, pretty much in history. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, Mark, it's good been talking to you. Look forward to Texas, Vanderbilt, BYU, and Miami getting screwed here shortly.
Thanks to Real. Before we take the next call, we deliver a ton of content here, and I'm going to thank Mike here, Michigan fan, for showing up. Class act, you Michigan fans, for showing up, and anybody who lost this last weekend. We don't need to carry around our team's losses like that's a personal indictment on our own character. Like, it's all fine. It's just football games. They're important. We love them. We want to win. We don't want to lose, but Michigan fans, hold your heads up high. You have the most wins of any college football team in history. Not the best winning percentage, but the most wins of all time. Okay. As I said to two of my friends that I was watching the game with the other day, because I was showing them various tweets and whatever before the game started. So would you rather be 9-1 or like 10-5? Anyway, Amazon links in the description section of this video and all the videos when you shop on Amazon. It's Christmas time, folks. You're on Amazon, right? Please use the link. It's right below this box, right below here, somewhere down here. Amazon, it will say Amazon in caps. Got a link right next to it. Grab that link. Put it somewhere where you will remember it. Then when you shop on Amazon, or you know what? While you're watching tonight, we're going to be here taking your calls for a while. I don't know how long. It's 7:07 right now, Eastern time. And we're going to take in the rankings and then take your calls and slice and dice and break down the rankings. But you might as well do your Christmas shopping right now. Let's do it right now and just grab the Amazon link right now. Go in there. And you will see right now, instantaneously, that Amazon link keeps track of your account. It recognizes you, your account, your history, everything. Your credit card, whatever you've got in there, it's magic. So grab the Amazon link that we provide. All right. And I do believe that the rankings are coming out at 7 p.m. Eastern time, correct? So let me throw this on the phone so I can play along. And I will no longer be watching Dr. Berg, if anyone knows who that is. Let's see. No, that was YouTube. We want YouTube TV. So let's get the YouTube TV broadcast going here. College Football Top 25 playoff. All right. Oh, hey, we're already into this here. All right. Unfortunately, I've missed the beginning of the top 25. We're down to Notre Dame at 10, Alabama 9. That doesn't make any sense, but the Real forecasted that. Did he not? Now, last week, they had Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10. This makes no sense. They had Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10, and I said clearly, like most people, well, Alabama's got a better resume. Why are they behind at Notre Dame? And now they flip-flop them, even though Notre Dame, okay, played a scrimmage against Stanford, blew them out. Who cares what the score was? It was like 49-3 in the fourth quarter. They beat them 49-20. Again, it doesn't matter. And Alabama barely beat Auburn. Explain this, committee. This makes no sense. No sense. And I think Auburn's a tough place to play. I think Auburn's a really talented football team and all of that. But they're still Auburn, and they're still 5-7. And Alabama barely won. They were lucky, fortunate. I'll say fortunate to win that game. All right, so Texas A&M goes to the back of the line at number 7. That's what I had forecasted. So they're the lowest ranking 11-1 team that's in the SEC or the Big Ten. And again, I missed the rankings before that. So I am going to have to look that up. Hopefully that's going to be posted very soon. if somebody really, really wants to help us out, they could post everything from 10 to 25. Oregon's at number 5, 11-1. And then Texas Tech stays the same, 11-1. So basically, Texas A&M moves down. Everybody else moves up a spot. Georgia at 3. Indiana is going to be at 2, and Ohio State at number 1. Okay. So again, the Alabama Notre Dame situation is stupid. I'm fine with it now. I'm fine with the rankings, but how we arrived is totally unreasonable. All right. First team out's BYU. Second team out is Miami, and they are ranked at 11 and 12. So that means we got Notre Dame at 10, BYU 11, Miami 12. I think that's pretty much what I had in my predictions for all of this. Just the next thing we really need to know is where Texas is ranked. All right. Can I back the show up? No, it won't let me do that. Sure it will. Here we go. Let me. Oh, shoot. Now I can't move it forward. All right. Anyway, we'll take calls and we will find out where everyone else is ranked. You guys probably already know. Yeah. Can't back that up far enough to find out. All right. David Greenshield stopping by to talk CFP.
Yes, Mark. I'm going to find it interesting this weekend. By the way, I wanted to comment quickly. I saw your trip to the mental institution today, known as the Team Up North podcast, in your conversation with Mr. Dace. No, maybe I need to show a little humility after this week, Mark. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try the Ryan Day route here. You know what I mean? Maybe I should show a little humility.
Yeah, that's your head coach. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I take a cue from him. But by the way, I did not realize that one of the most damaging statistics he put out there in listening to his podcast last year, Davis Warren threw for 62 yards. And this year, Bryce Underwood threw for 63.
Well, that $3 million was well spent. They got an extra yard out of that. Well done.
Wow. I'm going to leave the jokes to Mark Rogers now. I'm going to leave the needling to Mark Rogers. There we go.
Well, the first thing that I said, I'm going to have to go back and watch, because the thing that I intended on saying, but Steve Dace, God bless him. I love the guy, but his pitches to me last for about 4 minutes. So I got to sit there and wait. And I had in my head, I was going to say, well, at least you got your field goal kicking straightened out. Because the guy had missed 7 kicks, and then at least he went 3 for 3. So at least they got that straightened out. Was my thought there, but they got the extra yard out of Bryce Underwood. Absolutely.
Okay. So I have to say this. By the way, I was actually taking a look at these rankings. I do find them to be interesting.
Yeah, I want to see where Texas is. I'm looking at them come down right now, but keep going.
Okay, so by the way, a couple observations about this weekend. You made a good point though about with Underwood, about the fact that I don't understand why they didn't give him some like easy button throws in that game. Like wide receiver screens and things like that. To kind of get him going. I thought that was bad play calling a little bit. And plus, I mean, the other point was what Urban made. I don't understand why they didn't run the quarterback. At least use his legs and his athleticism, get him on the perimeter.
Yeah, that's something we talked about in recent weeks, that especially with the injuries to Haynes and Marshall being banged up, I expected that to be more of the game plan, number one, just by necessity, but then also just as a change up, as another thing that has to be accounted for. And then on top of that, just to extend on what you were saying about the pass game, my thought in that was also, to get Underwood started, to give him some easy throws, but also to you've got Andrew Marsh, who over the previous, I believe, 6 games was the number 1 receiver in the Big Ten, and has been suddenly a spark that I thought caused a little concern for me to think, well, Michigan may actually have some semblance of a passing game. And they did nothing to, when it became apparent that Bryce Underwood wasn't going to be throwing, 18-yard outs to him downfield, that they did nothing to, a rub route or something to just get him open, to get him the ball, to make him feel involved, that to get him going. They threw 16 passes in a game that they lost by 18 points. And I know that they didn't have the ball for much, but it was a poorly, I guess they owed us, considering Ohio State's poor offensive approach last year.
Yeah, Chip Kelly's game plan, which he should have had to answer for that, by the way. By the way, not enough talked about, I think, credit for Brian Hartline and maybe his game plan this year, by the way, Mark. I think if we're going to, have the negativity from last year, let's give some flowers to Brian Hartline this year for that offensive game plan as well. By the way, did he ever mention why, you mentioned that, Sane had all day to throw in that game. Did he ever mention why Martindale maybe they didn't throw some more blitz packages, or try to, if you can't get there with 4, bring more, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Did not hear that.
I found that to be interesting, what I mean? Just as a side note. So, okay, I'm taking a look at the rankings, and I do have some questions here. So I think we've got this. Alabama is at 9th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So per our conversation last night, I think that even if they do lose to Georgia, I still think to think that they would fall 4 spots. That might be a bit much, especially if it like you said, if it's at least a competitive game.
They only have to fall 2 spots.
Oh, 2 spots. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You're correct. Okay. Right. So might be a bridge too far, as long as the game's at least competitive, to kind of piggyback off what you said last night.
I think it should be. I think that, I really, some of these questions we wrestle with, there doesn't have to be, just an extreme, this is right, this is wrong. And when it comes to championship games, I think that's one of those things where I don't see how you can just ignore the championship game and say, well, for the winners, we are evaluating their performance, obviously, because they won the game. Therefore, they are reaping the benefits of winning. But we're going to completely ignore a team that lost 42-7 in the SEC championship game. Well, you can't do that. They played a game that was extremely meaningful. It has to be evaluated. But at the same time, they're putting their playoff lives on the line to a certain extent, where everybody else, and that's the reward they're getting for making the conference championship game. So I think we kind of have to look at both perspectives. And for me, Alabama would have to look atrocious, and I guess BYU in particular would have to do something to jump up there.
All right. So, the obvious thing is BYU's got to win on.
If they win, then
that's
how far does Texas Tech fall? Because then suddenly you got Bama playing in a better conference at 10-3, and you got Texas Tech at 11-2.
Right.
But they're number 4 in the country.
We'll see that's the thing is that upsets the apple cart, because as you talked about before, would Texas Tech fall that much? So, I mean, we're already looking at a situation where probably the 5 SEC teams, make the playoff. Shout out Darrell. And then 3 Big Ten teams make the playoff, which is 8. And then basically you have non-power 5, which gets us to 9. And then you're looking at what? If BYU beats Texas Tech, then you have 2 automatic champions from the ACC and then the Big 12. And then you have a Texas Tech kind of Notre Dame, Miami situation. Would be the interesting thing for the 12th spot.
So I would hope that the committee would not do what we just did to an extent and say, well, Texas Tech's number 4. There's no way we can drop them all the way to No, you have to just deconstruct the season and say, okay, we got Miami, we got Texas Tech, we've got Alabama, and we've got Alabama at 10-3 and Texas Tech at 11-2 and Miami at 10-2. They've got different records, but we got to compare their resumes, not say, well, you can't fall from 4 all the way to 12. No, you just have to. And off the top of my head, I think that if let's say Bama loses 27-10,
Yeah,
so they didn't get crushed.
but it's
They didn't look
decisive.
good. Yeah, it's decisive.
It's decisive. That's right.
I think that off the top of my head, I know the Florida State loss is bad, that they still have a better resume than BYU and Texas Tech
That's true.
and Miami.
See, Virginia and Duke. Mark.
Why are we getting on Virginia?
I know.
They're 10-2.
I know Virginia's had a solid year, but okay. Are we buying Virginia if they win the ACC title game? Their prospects in the playoff? I don't know. Okay.
No, I'm not buying their prospects in the playoffs, but that's
Right.
not my job is to consider who I think is
get
going to
it.
win playoff games. It's that Virginia would have a better resume than Miami would.
I
And not just
hear.
because they got a conference championship. They would, well, I'd have to run through the games, but
Can I ask you this
it
question?
would be arguable. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. How many Notre Dame games have you watched this year? I've watched 5, including their 2 losses.
Miami,
Okay.
like start to finish.
Yeah.
Texas A&M, there must have been somebody else playing because I intended to watch that game, really wanted to watch it, but I don't remember much about that game. So I think I watched about half that game. I watched most of their game against Pitt.
Okay. I watched that entire game. Yep.
You know, once it got out of hand, I wasn't going to sit there and watch, 30-3 in the fourth quarter. But and then after that, I watched USC.
Yes, that was 4 for me.
So I can't think of any other game that I watched. I watched a little bit of the Navy game. I saw some of that.
Yeah, I was a little bit of Navy, and then I actually unfortunately watched most of Stanford.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I was sitting here, so I did not see the Stanford game. So I saw more in the 4 range.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer that, and I'm an eye test person, and I look at the team and I try to see how many NFL guys they got. I try to look at okay, where are they strong at? And I've been a firm believer, and I'm no Notre Dame fan, but I think Notre Dame on eye test for me is a top 5, top 6 team in the country. I'll say that on eye test. And I'm not a Notre Dame fan.
So I agree with you, but I don't think it should matter. So I'm not an eye test guy, even though I do have 2 eyes and I do watch these games and I do have an opinion about who's better than whom. And I do think that Notre Dame's a better team than Miami, but they lost the game.
Right. They did.
And so if Notre Dame, I'm trying to think how they would miss the playoffs. Like if I was making the judgment call, well, I'd go by my top 25, and I don't know where I've got Notre Dame, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Right.
I think we need to evaluate the results and the performance.
Right. Although we get a lot of inconsistency from the playoff committee on this stuff, but
sure do.
But I am just expressing, as my opinion as an observer of college football, as a person that says, man, that team's got this on defense, that on offense, quarterback, running back, O-line, D-line. And I say, and you try to look at the position groups and evaluate how good they are. Because number one, I think they got the best pair of backs in the country in Love and Price. And I don't even think it's that close. By the way, I was willing to stipulate at one time that Scum had the second best group of running backs when Marshall and Haynes were healthy.
Yeah, I would agree.
So
but let me ask you this, David. So if Virginia lost to NC State and they lost to, was it Cal? No, Cal beat Louisville the same. Oh, they lost to Wake Forest.
Okay.
They would have beat Wake Forest by a point, and they would have beaten NC State by a point. They're pretty much the same team. They lost to both of them by one score. So they lost 2 games by one score to 2 very average football teams. If they squeak out another touchdown in those games, they win them by 1. They're 12-0,
Right.
and then they go win the ACC championship game. You're telling me that you would just leave them out of the playoff just because you don't think they're good enough?
I hear you.
Can we really operate a system like that and just say, we don't care what the results were. You're not any good. You don't have any NFL players, or you only have 2.
Well, I mean, but what's the argument that some people always put out there, Mark? I want to see the 12 best teams in the country in the playoff.
Okay.
But you know what? Not every conference is created equal, Mark. Let's be fair. It's just not.
And you know what my response is to the person that wants to see the 12 best teams in the playoffs? Nobody knows who the 12 best teams are. You think you know who they are, but nobody does know.
Right. But there's also a reason that certain conferences get certain preferences above other conferences, Mark. They didn't get those big TV deals because, I mean, let's be fair here. If there's something to these conferences pumping out the most players to the NFL that means something on a talent level.
Okay.
Now, all right, there's a hierarchy of conferences. Mark Rogers used to have a rating system on this. Maybe he still does, but there are levels to this, Mark. As somebody once told me, there are levels to this.
There are levels to this, but let's also understand that there were years in which the ACC had more players drafted than the Big Ten and was arguably better than the Big Ten, but they would never sign a TV rights deal that would outrank the Big Ten monetarily.
Yeah, so, those days are gone now, Mark, by the way.
Michigan and Penn State and whomever you want to put in as being a draw or a brand. Obviously, USC's been largely down for more than a decade. The Big Ten's still going to be a more valuable conference than the ACC. That doesn't mean it's better. Those are two. They're related. Obviously, you can't have the worst league in America and still people want to watch you, but they're not completely connected and don't correlate perfectly. The Big Ten is always going to outdraw the ACC just because they have storied brands, but that doesn't mean they're better.
Well, but listen, and I'm not saying this to be purely like Darrell called me once, Big Ten man here, because I do think that the Big Ten, middle portion of the Big Ten's been down this year. Obviously, the collapse of Penn State didn't help the cause. We overrated Illinois a little bit this year. I think USC and the team up north kind of finished where I thought they would be, which is basically 9-3 football teams. So, I mean, when you look at the premier programs in the country, now I could say Indiana overachieved than what we thought they would be, because a lot of people thought that's what Penn State was supposed to be this year, top 2 or 3 team in the country. At least coming into the season, people thought Penn State was going to be good. Maybe some people didn't think Penn State was going to be good, but they were certainly highly rated to be that good at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but you would still rate the Big Ten, even with some of their issues, as a higher conference if you're ranking conferences above the ACC this year?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, right. It's much better.
All right. That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But I want the results on the field to count.
I understand. I'm just giving an observation that, I'm not the only one that says I want to see the 12 best teams. That's been a theory out there by a fair amount of folks that have been making it. Maybe you disagree with that theory and you don't want to see the 12 best teams and the non-power 5 needs to get in there. We're not going to have the
12 best teams.
No? Okay.
We're never going to have the 12 best teams. We got a group of 5 team there. So automatically we don't have the 12 best teams.
You think it's just good to always throw the non-power 5 a bone, no, Mark?
We can go one way or the other on that, and I really am not that convicted one way or the other. We just need to make a decision, and obviously the powers that be did make a decision and said that basically because we want there to be a united front of college football being college football. And since these group of 5 teams do make up 3/12, 1/4 of or 2/12, 1/6 of every power conference team scheduled, and they should be included.
Okay.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. It's only 1 out of 12 spots. But if you know what,
Well,
if next year they decided and said, you know what, these teams aren't competing, they're not good enough, they need to go play their own playoff, I'd be fine with that too.
okay. So if they backed out the non-Power 5, you would be okay with that. Okay. Would you be okay with saying that the Big 12 only gets 1 bid and that's all the Big 12 is going to get?
No, I'm not good with that. I want the season to be played to prove that the Big 12 is not good enough to have any more than 1 team.
Okay.
This Tony Petitti proposal is completely moronic.
Okay.
And I don't know whether to call it a socialist ploy or what, but I believe in capitalism, and I believe in meritocracy. You don't predetermine who makes how many conference spots there are for each conference before the season's played. It's a meritocracy, or at least it should be.
Mark getting in talking to Dace too much during the day job or something here. No, I hear your point. To be fair, not all these conferences are created that equal.
No, but let it be shown on the field. Can you imagine if this season we would have said, okay, the Big 12 only gets 1 team in, and then Iowa State goes out and beats Iowa, and Baylor beats Auburn, and they all win their non-conference games against the SEC and the Big Ten, and we'd be like, does that make any sense?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make Mark Rogers the scheduling czar, and he's going to go ahead and he's going to make sure that if these Big 12 or if these ACC teams want to get multiple teams in, then they need to go get a data point in their non-conference to justify them getting in. Schedule a big boy, maybe a really solid SEC or Big 10 team in your non-conference, and if you go beat that team, that's going to be a major feather in your cap that will allow you to maybe get into the playoff. This is back to it kind of goes back to remember what I was saying last night with Sark, when Sark was saying, well, what if we never scheduled that game to Columbus and we scheduled OU instead of Ohio State? We'd be 10-2 right now and we'd be in the playoff.
So if I was scheduling czar,
yes, sir,
and I had no control over you would need to, I guess I would take whatever I could get with the right salary. But I would want
Mark, you're going to take a pay cut?
I better not be taking a pay cut. I would take I would want scheduling authority over the conference schedules as well, because they're screwed up as well. But I cannot control how good the conferences are. Therefore, I am not throwing the toughest games at the ACC just in anticipation that they have the worst conference, so I got to make up for it. No, I would build scheduling equity in non-conference play among all the conferences. I can't help how good the conferences are.
I think that's fair. See, that's what I was saying about like the Sark point. I'm like, in a 12-team playoff world now, our team's going to be reluctant to do, what like Texas and Ohio State did with the home and the home. You know what I mean? Going forward. So, all right. Well, I've been talking way too much as usual. I know. Thank you for letting me have the time, Mark. Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll get back together this week and talk again.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Take care, man.
As our buddy Troy is saying here, Mark would be ranking teams based on the size of their super chats. And I would be hurting right now if that were the case. The rankings would start at like 100. All right. We got Trey stopping by.
Hear me?
Welcome in, Trey. Oh. Trey, what's going on?
What's up, Mark?
Not too much. How you doing?
First thing I want to say about Florida before we get into these rankings, Florida made an okay hire. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited. He said it seems like he wants to be here.
You're excited about an okay hire.
I'm excited what he can bring. He's not like a Billy Napier. Let's not get that confused. He is not like a Billy Napier. He loves standard. He set the standard real quick in his press conference, but that's just talking. I want to see it on the field. I think he can come up with a good staff. Tulane been consistent now since he been a coach, and he did it with Troy. And so I'm actually excited to see what he can do. He actually has that enthusiasm, something Billy Napier did not have. And so that's a good thing. He can not only can rally the troops, he got command too.
You're big into enthusiasm.
Yeah, I like how he got command.
I've heard that at you several times about, John Gruden, for example. You love the enthusiasm. You love
You want people to come play for you. If you're just like Bill Napier, you're like,
Nick Saban really, has he ever shown that much enthusiasm?
Nick Saban got command. He got discipline. He got the voice. He's that guy that I would play for based off of just like, we're in the goddamn route, like goddamn.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't say that guys like Urban Meyer and Nick Saban had that much enthusiasm.
Oh, he has command and demand respect and listen to me. If you don't want to listen to me, get off the damn team. I like that too. It goes hand in hand with that, and I think Summerall has that. It's something about him. He knows how to play the SEC. He was he played for Kentucky, so he kind of get the feel what this SEC thing is about. If not him, I was wanting Jed Fish, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
that was my guy.
I wanted Jed Fish.
Besides John Gruden was Jed Fish, and that did not happen. I'm not sure why. What was confusing is I thought the interview got called off for Tulane. All of a sudden, he's the new coach. I'm like, what happened? Like, it was a bunch of confusion, but I'm happy and I'm excited to see what he brings. He got Tulane here in the college football playoff conversation and maybe, guide the team. And now he can't coach there no more if they did make it. But kudos to him. I hope he does great. Now for the playoffs, this is a tragedy. All right, the first thing I have issue in this playoff ranking here, and I love doing these rankings with you, is why in the hell? What's going on with this committee? Now, this is worse than last week, in my opinion. You cannot take Texas over Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a better team than Texas. By far none. But when you compare the two, Vanderbilt is great. And
if only they had played.
I wish they did. And I'm glad you said something about that.
Yeah.
In the previous conversation you just had, I like that. And you would have done that better. I think everybody would do that. Play each other. These conferences are screwing everything up.
Yeah, if only Texas and Vanderbilt would have played.
Oh, for God's sake. I mean, they're not punishing Texas enough for that Florida loss. All right. I mean, I'm even a Gator fan. We know we're that bad. We're very inconsistent. You got to have some punishment. You can't take Texas over Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, just beat Tennessee. That was ranked. So how are you going to punish them going down one?
They're not punished.
But you can't put them up higher than Vanderbilt.
Why?
They played a ranked team too.
Okay. The rankings aren't strictly based on what happened last weekend.
It could play into effect.
Okay.
Who knows?
The committee actually did an excellent job this week.
I don't know.
Now, how they got there, I don't know. But actually, their rankings are pretty close to my rankings. Except for, they put Houston, down near the bottom. It doesn't matter. But Houston does not deserve to be in any rankings. But Texas is perfectly placed. Vanderbilt actually should be. I'd have to go back and look at my rankings. But anyway, I have Texas at 13 as well.
Okay.
I do believe I've got Vanderbilt higher than that, though.
But why?
But you understand they played, Trey. I was kidding when I kept saying, if only they had played.
Oh, okay.
Texas beat Vanderbilt.
I would say, what?
Did you hear that?
What do you say?
Texas beat Vanderbilt.
Who cares about the head-to-head?
Who cares?
Yes, who cares?
Okay, you want the next point? Texas has arguably a better resume than Vanderbilt.
Really? But they
Well,
don't have that bad loss like Texas do. They
well,
got. I'll tell you.
they didn't go to Columbus, Ohio, and lose to the number 1 team in the country by 1 score. They
but
also
that was a good. Loss.
Vanderbilt has also not beaten Oklahoma and Texas A&M,
but they beat a pretty good Tennessee team,
and they didn't beat Vanderbilt.
Yeah, but that's a bad loss for Vanderbilt. But Texas had 2 bad losses when you get trounced. When they didn't show up,
No.
trounced.
They got
trounced.
Yes, they got trounced, but they were playing Georgia. Yeah, I can't go along with that. I have no issue with that ranking.
I would also put why did Alabama get put over ahead of Notre Dame? Now that was interesting. They were not. Let's be honest. Despite the Auburn playing over there and their SEC team, when you look at it, Notre Dame and Alabama did not play very good teams. Okay, and it didn't really make a difference if it was me. If I was on the committee, I would have left them the same, Notre Dame over Alabama, because it wouldn't make no difference. It was nothing to move because there was nothing to move. What is that supposed to prove?
Except I would have already had Alabama ahead of Notre Dame.
You're right. But you would not make that mistake way later and trying to fix it later either, Mark.
No.
We would have called it. You would have called it right down the middle at first, and now it turned into more frustration because why you move them now? What sense did that make?
Exactly. So Notre Dame played basically no one. They played Stanford. They beat them by 1,000,000 points, and then. But Alabama, that's the game to evaluate. And I think Auburn's really talented, and it's a difficult place to play and all that. But let's not kid ourselves. Auburn's 5-7, and Alabama beat them by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that justifies them jumping. I have no idea.
I'm surprised that BYU still keeping left out, and for the people that like Miami to be in, they're behind BYU. Now, if BYU gets instead of Miami, they're not screwed. All right, Miami did not get screwed. You know why? Because BYU has a good resume. They lost to Texas Tech, but guess what? They beat Utah. That's a good team. And they got Arizona that's ranked 18. That's pretty good. That's actually really good. And I also will say, they also beat Cincinnati. That was ranked early in the year. That doesn't matter now. But besides Texas Tech, Utah, and Arizona, I think they are better than Miami in my opinion. They don't have that bad loss. The only bad loss they have is Texas Tech, and that's a good loss. If you want to take a loss, it'd be Texas Tech. Miami lost to SMU and Louisville. I think it matters who you lose to. I think the eyeball test.
Well, it all matters. It all should matter. But BYU also doesn't have a win against Notre Dame.
But that was way early in the year.
So,
I think.
Who cares?
I think recently,
we're not
admit,
counting the wins early in the year. Those don't count.
They do count, but they don't go count when you have like early in the year. You have Miami versus Texas, and Texas they beat Miami. Oh my goodness! And then you realize Texas is like 3-9, and you got Miami that's 10-2. Don't you think punishment?
Well, that's not what happened.
I know, but
Notre
they're
Dame's 10-2 and Miami's 10-2.
But it's 2 completely different teams now, Mark.
No, they are not completely different teams.
Notre Dame is way better than Miami right now, and Miami is taking a dive. And BYU,
all right, Trey,
better than both of them.
Okay,
all right,
let's wrap it up for tonight.
I would actually put BYU over top of them.
All
and
right.
I say this, Mark.
Yes.
If Alabama
last thing you're going to say.
If Alabama loses, they will be out.
Okay. Good night,
and BYU
Trey.
would take their place.
Good night, Trey.
No.
All right. After a while, I just can't do it anymore. Okay. Trey makes some decent points. He makes some other points that are extremely flawed. But when he starts to repeat himself, okay, I'm out. Got it. I got it. All right. And to make these anyone who makes like these declarative statements, like they're fact, that okay, Miami's a 10-2 football team, Notre Dame's a 10-2 football team. I saw their strength of schedules today, and it did not surprise me because I've only said this about 800 times. They're indistinguishable. Their strength and difficulty of schedule is almost exact between the two. And you know what? Yeah, one's 44 and one's 46th. So guess what? They played. And to act like it didn't happen and to say that Notre Dame's so much better than Miami is now is just, it's literally asinine. It's just stupid. Now, you can have your opinion, but your opinion should not factor into us making playoff rankings. What Notre Dame has done since losing to Miami that shows that they're better than Miami, I don't know what that would be. They both played North Carolina State. They both beat them by a ton of points. The scores were almost exact. Actually, Miami beat them worse. They both played Pitt. They both beat them by 1,000,000 points. Actually, Miami beat them a little bit worse on the scoreboard. They both played Syracuse. They both beat them by 1,000,000 points. No, not Syracuse. Somebody else. Stanford. So they have 3 common opponents right there. I think those are the only 3. Stanford, NC State, and Pitt. There might be another one in there. I do believe that those are the 3 common opponents, and you cannot find any distinction between the 2 teams. And Miami beat Notre Dame. I know it's way back in August, so it shouldn't count. It was just so long ago. I guess we'll have to start saying those are preseason games or something. Is there some kind of magical date on the calendar when they start to count? Is that October 1st? When is that? No, sorry. They count. They count. They did both play Syracuse, yes. So they played Syracuse, Stanford, NC State, and Pitt. Yeah, and Notre Dame beat Syracuse by 1,000,000, and Miami beat them by 500,000. They were completely inconsequential what they did to these teams. They both buried all of them. Yeah. All right. Not to let our guy Michael hang on the line here. Michael, how you doing?
Good, yourself?
I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Not much, but how do you ever get a gut feeling sometimes that utter chaos is about to happen within the next 96 to 120 hours?
Okay, what does that look like to you?
I think there's going to be some teams that get shocked and make it that people don't think they'll make it.
Okay, who are we talking about? I need specifics. It's not like there's 40 games being played Saturday. There's like 10.
I know. So. All right, say like for the Duke game. I think somehow, maybe I'm wrong. Please, I'm probably wrong. Duke wins. Okay. There's chaos number 1. Okay, and I was thinking about this earlier.
That's not any great shock. That would not. Virginia's not. They are a very slight favorite in that game. I think the point spread's only like 2.5.
But if that was to happen,
yes,
wouldn't that open the door a little bit for the Mountain West to maybe steal a bid?
Why?
Because everybody's thinking it could be maybe James Madison or North Texas, or is it maybe?
Yeah. So yeah, the top 5 conference champs. I got you. So yeah, I don't know where the committee has any of those ranked outside of the top 25, but trying to think who that would be. We got UNLV at 10-2.
Where's Boise State? They 9-3.
I think they're 9-3. We can pull it up here. So yeah, you make a good point that Duke at 8-5 compared to Mountain West Conference teams that are 10-2, 9-3, and obviously there's a championship game. And that is I don't even know who's in the championship game. I forgot. They had the computers figure that out.
I think I'm not sure. I thought it might have been UNLV.
We'll see here in 2 seconds. The championship game is
UNLV Boise State.
UNLV Boise State. Okay. So that's 10-2 against 9-3. So let's say Boise or UNLV wins the
game.
Where in the world? There we go. Standings. All right. UNLV at 11-2 against Duke at 8-5. It's a tough call because Duke will have played a significantly more difficult schedule.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about if Troy maybe sneak in?
No.
Oh, it's pretty much all but done. I
Well,
mean,
they can only go to 9-4, and they play a horrendous schedule. No,
okay.
Troy is not a factor. James Madison's a factor, obviously.
Yeah, and of course they're 25th. Now, the question I'm trying to figure out is if either Texas Tech or BYU blows the other team out.
Yeah.
Is it possible that Miami can sneak back in and Notre Dame can be knocked out?
Yes. So if Texas Tech blows out BYU, then yeah, BYU's done. Most likely, they're going to drop to 11-2, and they've got a bad loss on or a blowout loss. So BYU's what, 11?
Yeah. Now, what about if BYU did the same thing to Texas Tech?
Well, Texas Tech's the number 4 team in the country right now.
Okay. All right. So they're pretty much. But could it happen, though? They could fall out that far?
I don't think that's going to happen. No.
All right. No, just wondering stuff like that. Or is it no? Okay, no. I mean, no. Say like Texas Tech is blown. Is it possible Oregon can jump up within the top 3? I mean, in the top 4.
So I would think that whoever wins the SEC championship game is going to be in the top 4. So for your scenario to play out, Georgia has to lose. And you're talking about Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon being in the top 4 along with
the winner of the SEC championship.
Yeah. That's a possibility right there. Is Oregon ahead of, I've lost track of these teams. They're ahead of Ole Miss, correct? Oregon's 5
yeah, Oregon's 5 and Texas Tech was 4.
And Ole Miss is 6. Okay. Yeah, we could have 3 Big Ten teams.
Now, how far can you say the winner of the SEC? If Bama beats Georgia again, are they going to go all the way to number 3?
They might go to number 2.
So
maybe. I'm not saying that for sure, but they could.
So
if let's say Ohio State beats Indiana. Let's say Ohio State beats Indiana convincingly and Alabama wins the SEC. You know, they're comparing Indiana as a non-conference champion at 12-1 against Alabama at 11-2 against the conference that has the metrics to be the number 1 conference in the country. And Alabama just beat Georgia twice.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the only way IU could fall out of the top 4 is get their brains beat in. Say like
so
say like it was what IU did to Purdue last Friday night. 56.
Well, I don't. Okay. Let's say Georgia wins the SEC and Texas Tech wins the Big 12. I don't know who would jump into Indiana's spot. Like, even if they do get blown out, they're 12-1. They beat Oregon. You're not going to drop them below Oregon. They won that game.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to drop below Ole Miss because Ole Miss didn't make an SEC championship game. Sure. I don't see that happening. I think Ohio State and Indiana are locked into the top 4.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I got to ask you, between Georgia and Texas Tech, which ones do you think is most likely to fall out of the top 4?
Georgia, because I think they're more likely to lose.
So you got them losing Saturday?
No, I didn't say I had them losing. I said they're more likely to lose.
No, I'm asking you, in your opinion.
I haven't made any predictions.
All right. I was just wondering stuff like that. And as they say, when March Madness starts, let the crazy chaos starts this weekend, because I got a feeling there's gonna be some chaos that happens. You think, or you think it'll be status quo?
So I'm trying to get out of you what your chaos is. So your chaos is Duke wins and maybe a Mountain West Conference team jumps in there.
Yeah, to where there's maybe 2 group of 5 teams get in.
Yeah. I think the more likely scenario is that the spot gets taken up by James Madison.
Okay. So Miami pretty much. Sorry, we never should have lost these 2 games this year. So they're gonna be on the outside looking in. You think then?
Well, that's let's see. If the Big 12 only gets 1 spot, then these top 9 teams that we see right there are going to make the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other spots are going to be the 2 group of 5s. If it's either the 2 group of 5s if Duke wins the ACC, or it's a group of 5 and it's Virginia. So that's 11.
Yeah.
And then the committee's going to have a decision to make between Notre Dame and BYU, or I'm sorry, Notre Dame
in Miami,
and also BYU. They're right there. If they play a close game against Texas Tech, then I don't know how you jump Miami over BYU if BYU plays. Dude, this is where Miami is in a tough spot if the committee is being, and I'm not defending them not honoring the head-to-head, but I'm saying now that they've positioned it this way, I don't know how they could jump Miami over BYU if BYU loses a really great game against the number 4 team in the country.
Okay.
That to me substantiates them being number 11. That actually is confirmation that they're that good.
Now, if Bama loses, goes 10-3, are they safe regardless of being the 3-loss team?
I don't think they're safe if they get killed. Yeah, if they get killed and BYU plays close, I don't think they're safe.
Yeah, because I was just trying to figure out why they flip-flopped Bama. Is because they played this game Saturday and Notre Dame's done?
That's a mystery. No, why they flip-flop them now? Well, Saturday's game has nothing to do with that.
All right. And with Trey, why is Trey saying that Auburn to me should have been better than? I think they was better than 5-7 this year.
Oh, I do too.
All right, and I gotta one last thing.
But they are 5-7.
Yeah. All right. Would you say Big Ten? I mean, would you say who was more disappointing this year? Well, Penn State or Illinois or both?
It's an interesting. They're 2 very different situations because Illinois kept its coach, the team was intact, played out the season, and Penn State, once they did what they did, and you fire the coach and your starting quarterback gets hurt, it's kind of tough to really evaluate them after that. But obviously, Penn State's a more disappointing team overall because they had the worst record. But more importantly than that, they were supposed to contend for a national championship. Illinois,
yeah, but when people thinking Illinois is going to be a college football playoff team this year too?
Well, they were ranked in that range where they were given consideration. I don't know that they weren't considered like a slam dunk for the playoff, but I will say that, yes, Penn State was more disappointing.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering. Oh, and I apologize for going over the 3-minute mark, sir.
Oh, you're fine, Michael.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And you'll be doing the live stream this weekend?
Yeah, so we get the live stream on Wednesday night, Thursday night. I'm trying to find somebody for Friday night, and then yes, after the games on Saturday.
No, are you gonna do eventually like you did a couple of years ago, to where during certain you might pick a game and do a live stream?
Oh, do a little watch party.
Yes, and don't make it for members only, because I'm not a member yet.
Well, I wouldn't make it for members only, but I guess I could take a poll and see if anybody's going to show up for that. If anybody has any interest in watching, let's say, the Big Ten championship game, guess we could watch that together. I don't know.
All right, I was running something. All right, sir, I gotta get a test done for class, so I gotta go. Mark, thanks anyway, man. Have a great night.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, people love watch parties for some reason. I can't say that I quite get it myself, but I will ask the crowd, ask the chat. You guys have any interest in any watch parties this weekend? You can, maybe I'll send out a poll. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We do appreciate you being here. The Amazon link's in the description section of this video and all the videos. And those are the rankings. And my final take is, why did Alabama jump Notre Dame? Although I do believe that Alabama should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. Other than that, I have no issue with these rankings. I have no issue, even though I've got Vanderbilt ranked much higher than the committee does. I'm okay. I'm okay. I think Arizona's ranked too high. Houston's ranked too high. But again, we get down to this point and it doesn't much matter, other than the group of 5, where we see that Tulane, North Texas, and James Madison. That's going to somewhat work itself out, because obviously the American Conference champion is going to win that spot between Tulane and North Texas. And then if Duke wins the ACC, then James Madison has the great opportunity to jump in there. Unless Duke is magically ranked 26, 27, 28, something in that range. And I can't imagine that they are at 7 and 5. And then it's really SOS for the ACC. All right, folks, we get together on Wednesday, 7 o'clock for the Miami show, 8 o'clock for the Florida State show. Then we will see you tomorrow night right here at the Voice of College Football. Please hit the like button on your way out.